Let's look now a little bit more at Imam Ahmad's lifestyle and his personal charisma, because this helps in understanding his fiqh, and it's also something very beautiful and moving in its own right. We've seen how he used to travel on foot, sometimes getting lost in the desert, sometimes having to work his way because he refused to accept a subsidy from anyone. We've seen that he has a very small income, really a few pennies from his father's legacy, which continues. But he has a family, and in order to support them, the historians narrate that he followed three methods. Firstly, one of the things he was famous for in Baghdad is that he would go out to the Sawad, which is the countryside, the black earth, very fertile around Baghdad, and he would ask the permission of farmers after the harvest was completed if he could walk through the fields to see if he could find some grains that had been missed. It's also narrated that sometimes he would work as a copyist, just writing things out for people. And again, there's some interesting accounts of this. This one is from Tarikh al-Dhahabi, History of al-Dhahabi, just to give you an example of what his reputation was in these things. كان لنا جار, we used to have a neighbor, فأخرج إلينا كتابا, and one day he showed us a piece of paper which was something was written. فقال أتعرفون هذا الخط, and said, do you know this handwriting? قلنا هذا خط أحمد بن حنبل, and we said, that's the handwriting of Ahmad bin Hanbal. فكيف كتب لك, so how did he write this for you? قال كنا بمكة مقيمين عند سفيان بن عيينة. Once we were staying in Mecca with Sufyan bin Uyayna, one of the great hadith scholars. ففقدنا أحمد أياما, and we didn't see Ahmad bin Hanbal for several days. ثم جئنا لنسأل عنه, and then we went to the place where he was staying, to his room, to ask about him. فإذا الباب مردود عليه, but he wouldn't open the door. فقلت ما خبرك, and I said, what's going on? قال سرقت ثيابي, and he said, somebody broke into my house and stole my clothes. فقلت معي دنانير, and I said, I've got some money. فإن شئت صلة وإن شئت قرضا, if you want you can take it, if you want I can lend it to you. فأبى, and Ahmad refused. فقلت, and he was obviously thinking about how he can get Imam Ahmad out of this fix. He can't leave because his clothes have been stolen, but he won't accept anybody's charity or even a loan. فقلت تكتب لي بأجرة, and I said, will you write something for me for a recompense? قال نعم, and he said, yes. فأخرجت دينارا, so I got out a coin. فقال لي اشتري لي ثوبا واقطعه نصفين, يعني إزارا ورداء, and he said, buy me a simple tunic and cut it into two so I can have a rida and an izar, an upper and a lower garment. وجئني بورق, and bring me some paper. ففعلت وجئت بورق فكتب لي هذا, and I brought him some paper and he wrote this thing out for me. وكان ينسج أحيانا, and this is another thing that Imam Ahmad used to do. These three things. Firstly, he would glean in the fields. Secondly, he worked as a copyist. Sometimes he worked as a weaver. كان ينسج أحيانا ويبيع ما ينسج. He used to weave, and he would sell the things that he wove. Whether it was weaving as such or some kind of basic embroidery or just sewing things for people is not quite clear, but there's a story of Ishaq bin Rahaway, who also has a great musnad, another great hadith scholar, who was quite close to him, who'd gone to Sana'a also to study with Abdul Razak al-San'ani, and stayed in the room above Imam Ahmad. And he used to report that Imam Ahmad used to earn a living by embroidering caps. People would bring their caps to him and he would embroider nice patterns in them and earn a few pennies. He did this because, unlike some of the other scholars, he refused ever to accept a gift, and particularly a gift from the caliphs or the governors. Even though this was zakat, and in principle it was fine for the scholars in order to support sacred knowledge to take the money of the Muslims in this way. And he would also quite strongly disapprove of his students or colleagues doing so. Imam al-Shafi'i knows about Imam Ahmad's refusal to take any official salary. Imam al-Shafi'i has come to Baghdad and he's in Ahmad's circle He's teaching Imam Ahmad, and he learns that the Imam wants to travel to Yemen in order to learn some more hadiths despite his poverty. And Shafi'i had been asked by the Khalifa al-Amin to choose a judge for Yemen, so he proposes Imam Ahmad. But Imam Ahmad says to his teacher, Ya Aba Abdillah, in sami'tu minka hadha thaniyatan lam tarani indak. He's speaking to Shafi'i, he's speaking to his teacher. If you ever suggest this to me a second time, you'll never see me again. This is his principle. His tawarra is that he will not accept money from the state. It seems that his reason for this was that the money might contain a shubha. That is to say, it might have been acquired in part by illegal, morally questionable means. Governments sometimes were quite arbitrary in the way in which they levied taxes, and he didn't want to be supporting himself in this very blessed task of acquiring and promoting sacred knowledge from any money that might have been appropriated from the Muslims in an unlawful fashion. So he had this wara. But certainly not all of the scholars took the same view. Abu Hanifa, Sufyan al-Thawri took his view. They themselves never accepted official sponsorship. Others did. Al-Hasan al-Basri, for instance, or Imam Malik. Their view was that the scholars of the Ummah really like the army, and taxes exist in order to support them. Perfectly legitimate use of the treasury. Others tended to take what you might describe as a middle way, working for the caliphs and taking their money, but giving the money in sadaqah. So this was the policy of Imam al-Shafi'i, who used to work for the Khalifa Harun al-Rashid, but gave his salary away regularly to the poor or to his students. Quite often this is the policy of the ulama, that they will accept an official post in order to help people in that post, and they will take the money, but they will not take it for themselves, but will give it to the needy. Imam Ahmad takes this more severe, restrictive view, but it also seems that he doesn't regard it as haram to take money from the state. It's his own personal scrupulousness that he doesn't want to support himself on money that might have been unethically acquired, but he doesn't consider this to be a fiqh position. So we find this great Imam, with his extraordinary triumph, the most popular man in Baghdad, having been tortured for more than a year and then silenced for much longer and disgraced by the Khalifa, really carried in triumph to the mosque, having prevailed, but always living this extremely austere life of Zuhd, of renunciation. And as we've seen, well, that's how he was brought up anyway. His mother was poor,